Hi, I'm Shoma Chaudhury. Thanks for watching ENQUIRY. The Modi government has announced a scheme called Agnipath, which will bring sweeping changes to the recruitment and composition of the Indian Army. This has triggered intense debates and protests across the country. The government claims this is an important reform that will bring down the age of the army, make it fitter, more tech-savvy, reduce the budget, and transform the youth of the country. Critics fear that it will adversely impact the morale and psyche of the army, make it less effective, and have immense negative ramifications for society. To weigh in on this debate, I have an exceptional panel on the show today. Lieutenant General DS HOODA retired as the Chief of the Northern Command. He oversaw the surgical strikes and has served in active combat in both the northern and eastern fronts of India. Air Vice Marshal Rajesh ISSER has also served in Kargil and Siachen, been part of peacekeeping forces in Sri Lanka, Rwanda, Uganda, and been part of humanitarian disaster responses across the country. Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia retired as the Director General of Military Operations, one of the most key officers in the army, and Lieutenant General Surendran Kulkarni was given the most distinguished peacetime award and is now the director of Mayo College in Ajmer. Thank you very much for joining me on the show. It's a privilege to have all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, Vice Marshal ISSER, I wanted to start with you. You know, there's a lot of debate around the Agnipath scheme. You're one of the veterans who've actually been very pro the scheme. You think that it's a really good move. Can you spell out your top 3 reasons for why you think this is an important move by the government?
Yeah, okay. Any kind of, all the generals are more aware than I am, but this kind of a thing comes out of a need. And in fact, in this case, it's not a need, it's an imperative. Why? First of all, as far as the army goes, it's very clear that they wanted to have a younger age profile. I read some articles last few days where they say the age profile is okay, but it is really not. Those of us who've served, and all 3 must have, in the mountains where the battles will take place, the ability of the younger lot in their 20s to take risks, the physical ability as well as the mental ability is tremendous. I saw it in the Kargil war with the Indian Army. Tremendous courage, bravery, but that wouldn't have been there without that younger profile. The leadership is, of course, very important, and it could be an older leadership. So the profile had to be young. Number 2, you can see the wars that are happening now. There's a famous saying that the nature of war doesn't change, but the character changes. In fact, it is now almost tantamount to even the nature changing. And it's a different kind of a war that we're going to fight. Bullets, guts, is all going to be there, whether in the Army, Air Force, Navy. But the cognitive abilities are going to be tremendously high. Forget about the Air Force, which is far more networked and tech savvy. Even the Indian Army soldier, the vision these generals have put out is a soldier who is virtually networked, and his situational awareness is so high that he can actually operate independently and yet in a coherent manner with everything. That kind of thing requires a different recruitment from what we've been doing, that raw brawn kind of a thing, and, take your time. So I'm sure the generals will agree that we need a different this thing, albeit not diluting the other abilities. And of course, the third reason and the major reason is there is no way this country, we saw what happened to Greece. There is no way we can support this pension pay bill if we have to modernize and get that money to the defense forces. Now, I'm not saying it is just the defense forces where you do this act. This is just a start. It should get on to defense PSUs. It should get on to every bureaucracy and everything about the government. And possibly that's what the way is. So that's those 3 reasons.
Right. So I'm going to, of course, ask the others, but I'm just going to leave some thoughts with you. You mentioned about the youth of the army, and that's, of course, important. But there's also the steeling of the mind, which comes with many years of service and the maturity with which to operate in battle zones. So the training factor is something everyone's brought up. And then the technology, when you're hiring people at young boys at 17, coming from all strata of society, whether in 6 months they're really going to get that kind of technological training that you're talking about, which will make the army. So there's been a lot of concern about that. And the pension, of course, is another big area, which I'm sure everyone will have a view on, which is that, in fact, this government pushed through the one rank, one pension. And many veterans have, come up with other ideas of how to cut budgets, including the civilian bureaucracy around the military forces, rather than really impacting the military itself. But, I'm going to hear about this much more from the others. So, Lieutenant General Bhatia, I wanted to bring you in. I know that you are very worried about this scheme. You've written a little about it, but very succinctly in one of your tweets, you said, if you think pension is expensive, try defeat, which kind of sums up how worried you are about the impact of this on the army. So can you, again, I'm just opening up the conversations, pick your 3 reasons for being as worried as you clearly are.
Thank you for this opportunity. No, it is decisions first, discussions later. Unfortunately, the scheme is rolled out, and I don't see it going back. And we already started seeing a review of the schemes. So I think there is a definite concern whether it is optimal, whether it will produce the results or not. My issues are, why disturb an effective organization? Why lead to its destruction in the end state? Because the soldier is the army, and the best soldiers form army. Army is made of soldiers, sailors, air warriors. Army is not meant on, even recent examples, what everyone is giving, it's a soldier who matters. And I have a conviction that the Indian Army soldier costs the minimum and delivers the maximum. Right? To say a lifetime cost of pension and all is looking at a very narrow portion of his deliveries. Indian Army is steeped in traditions, culture, heritage. We fight for Naam Namak Nishan. These are intangibles which cannot be weighed by budgets and by money. We all understand, we are mature enough to understand that the competing at national level budgets will be limited. But then we will need to find optimal utilization of budget to enhance combat effectiveness. In the end, it's a combat effectiveness. You can have an army with everything, a technology army, youth army, but in the end, what does it matter? The combat effectiveness matters. Are we now doing something to impact the combat effectiveness? My firm belief is yes, definitely. I don't want to get an argument over this thing, but the recruitment base is the same. The recruitment procedures are the same. Processes are the same. Selection system is the same. Criteria is the same. So how do we get a better material? How do you get more technology-savvy people? Nothing has changed. What has actually changed is that we will get second, third rung recruits now. Because the best would go to the CIPF where they get 60 years, the best would go to government services, state police, Assam Rifles, state armed police, and those who cannot go anywhere will come to the army to punch the ticket so that they can thereafter serve the CIPF 10% reservation, Assam Rifles and all. I think we are unnecessarily creating turmoil and turbulence in an established system. And we do not have a way forward as far as good transition management is concerned. So that is my major concern, is that do not disturb the fabric of the Indian Army, which is the strength of the Indian Army, which is a soldier. And as we all know, the weakest link of any chain, the strength of any chain is the weakest link. And the soldier was the strongest point, and today the soldier will become the weakest link. In 4 years, what will he deliver? When a soldier comes to a unit, any unit for that matter, it takes about 4 to 5 years to become an effective part of a unit. He is not given responsibility straight away. It is not only the infantry I'm talking about. I'm talking about the technical arms. How will he repair a tank or an aircraft? A couple of aircraft, human error servicing is very common. It can become very common with the inexperienced people. Ships, submarines. We are told that they will recruit on the ITIs. Now, ITIs do not train them in repair of tanks, radars, submarines, ships, aircraft. So I really don't know what we are looking at. 4 years, a technician is only allowed to pass on a spanner or a screwdriver to a more experienced man. We need experience, and anywhere, any organization in the world, and the armed forces more so, even technology-driven for organizations, the major challenge is recruitment and retention of quality manpower. We have the quality manpower. Now we're cutting down on the recruitment processes where we get the last of the lot, and we are now, after 4 years, 75% will go out. There'll be risk aversion, they'll look over their shoulders. Let's learn from the PLA. Galwan is just about 2 years and a couple of days old. In Galwan, it was called Santosh Babu and his men, who made sure that with the effective retaliation, with a very ferocious reaction, they made sure that no more Galwans happen. Otherwise, we would have many more Galwans. I refuse to believe that that was a one-off incident. The PLA, the cost was raised. That's why no more Galwans happened. That's why we see no escalation of violence along the LAC. We all started the LAC. We know PLA well. So I think we have to understand that we need experience and youth both. And the Kargil Review Committee came out in 2002 and said that we should lower the age profile. And the armed forces, the army in particular, the infantry in particular, set in motion certain things. And the age profile has been lowered to an extent which is fully acceptable. We have proven everywhere. What age profile are you talking about?
So, okay, sir.
The LAC deployment.
Let me just bring in the others. Your top concerns are that, you're saying it's the same strata of the pool of human resources, the same. So this assumption that there's going to be a great jump in technological knowledge in a shorter training period doesn't bear forth. And you're saying it's really going to impact the psyche of the soldier when they know that they're just on a rolling stone of 4 years and there's no space to build up Naam Namak Nishan, as you said. So, I'm just going to leave that with you for a moment. General Hooda, I wanted to bring you in. You've served, like actually everyone here on the panel, you've served in some of the most difficult battlefields. I know that you're also very concerned about this. Over and above what General Bhatia spoke of, what would be some of the other concerns that are making you very worried about this scheme?
So Shoma, before I bring out the concerns, let me also say, we've heard two sides. There are advantages that have been brought out that, likely that we'll get a more technologically adept army because you are rotating people every 4 years, bringing in, young people. The age profile is certainly going to be lower. That's an advantage. We needed to reform and, the budgets were like becoming unmanageable. So yes, those are the advantages. I think General Bhatia has clearly brought out what the challenges are. And I'm not going to call them problem areas, but there are challenges. And the primary sort of concern for me is it going to impact the professionalism and operational capability of the military? Is 6 months of training sufficient or is not sufficient? How will these people who come only for 4 years, and as General Bhatia brought out, it takes 3 to 4 years to actually get a soldier properly trained with the ethos that is required, and then they'll be going out. They're concerned about a second career, and it's a genuine concern, which is why you are seeing such scenes on the streets. Whether that is going to impact the morale and motivation levels. So my suggestion, honestly, is let's not underplay, while we understand the advantage, let's not underplay the challenges. I think it's such a radical change that at this stage, it's very difficult to assess what exact impact is it going to have on military, particularly the fighting units, etc. What sort of impact is it going to have? Is it going to sort of lead to a certain amount of dilution of the military ethos? Let's put it through a sort of a test bed, and I'm suggesting a test bed of 4 years, and I can talk a little more in detail. And after that, we say, let's go ahead and implement it. Whatever changes are required, we can make those changes, and then sort of implement it. To me, there seems to be two sort of competing narratives. One saying it's outstanding and transformational. Somebody says, no, I think there are few challenges. So there is a need to, I think, calmly look at it, put it through a test bed. And then if after 4 years we find, it's worked tremendously well, then we can turn around and say, wow, this has been a transformational scheme. I think it's a little premature to start using those terms at this stage. Sure.
So, General Kulkarni, let me bring you in. General Bhatia and General Hooda have raised some issues. You've already heard those. But just this basic point that General Hooda is making, that there should have at least been a pilot case, when you're so transforming something which is literally one of the spinal backbones of the country at a time when there's great threat perception, to so, meddle with the DNA of an institution. Do you think that that's been a mistake? Though I know that you're pro the scheme, would you at least first start with saying that there should have been a pilot, or do you think it's going exactly as it should have?
Shoma, that would be, nothing like being pro or anti for a particular scheme. we are all, veterans who have gone through all kinds of operations and training and everything, and we have our apprehension. I look at it a little differently because I feel whatever it be, as Western body, we have apprehension. We have the ability to air, not ability to air. We could convey to the right quarters, yes or no. Let's forget about that. Well, it's been in for discussion for the last about 2 years or 2.5 years. And now the uniform body, which is trained to win. That's it. And there is no other way that they are being trained for. If it's only for win that they're being trained for and they know exactly what they're looking at, obviously there are going to be challenges. There is no denying the fact. Or why that's a system which is running so well. But having said so, now in that case, when we know for sure that whatever, like what General Bhatia said and General Huda said, well, it's now a fait accompli. We've accepted it. We've gone through it. Each one of us have said what we have to say. Well, our own uniform body accepts it, and there I will now willingly or whatever way it has been accepted. Now, once the scheme has been accepted, let's see what are the challenges and how do we get over it. What are, as long as the combat ability is not affected, as long as the army is trained to win, as long as the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of the nation is intact, if that's been hit for whatever the reason, then yes, by all means, then. Having said that, let me tell you, it's a scheme which is in play, a work in progress for 4 years. So even when we talk about pilot project, there's nothing in written on stone that it will not. It's a recruitment is only one way, and that's the Agnipath way. There is no way. Agniveers are going to coming in. Now we are not going to have other soldiers and the Agniveers. It's the Agniveers. So for 4 years, the Raksha Mantri has been empowered. Should the tweaks be required, some kind of reforms be required, we look at it. But supposing, let's take that the system is what it was earlier. It would be the same for the next 4 years. There is no dilution of recruitment standards. Well, if we have said we want 40,000 recruits for this year, we probably might get 4 lakhs. So, irrespective of where they come, if we are not diluting our standards, we are not doing anything, we're going to pick up the best 40,000. If you're going to pick up the best 40,000 of them and going to train them for 6 months, earlier we were training them for 9 months with 21 days of leave and whatever it is. Now we have more simulators, more adaptability training, more intelligent boys coming in, more tech savvy, for instance, and whatever be it. And now, out of those, say, in an infantry battalion, 40 come in every year. Let's presume every year 40 of these boys come in into an infantry battalion. And first year, second year, third year, fourth year, it's only after completing the fourth and the fifth year we're going to retain 10 and release 30. So, at least for the next 4 years, how is it going to affect the country? Or for that matter, the armed forces. It doesn't affect the armed forces. Even if you were to do the regular recruitment, it would be the same. Even if you were to train, it would still be the same. Now, at the fifth year, or after completion of fourth year, when all of them are released, we have got to decide, the commanding officer with his team decides who out of these 40, 10 have to be retained. So you've got a deep selection now. So out of the 40, you're selecting the best 10, and that the 10 are to be retained. Now, like this, at least for the first 4 years, or for the next year after that, for another 4 years, for instance, 160 boys have come in a strength of 800. If only 160 have come in, it's almost like a pilot project or a work in progress. And in the fifth year, whoever is in chair as the Raksha Mantri decides, and the chiefs who are there, they go up to him and say, well, this is not functional. Or some of them may say, wow, it's a great success. Somebody said, no, the regimentation is gone for a 6. It isn't the way we're looking at it. Or somebody might say, no, it hasn't affected. So we get the feedback. The feedback is a regular feature. So let's not, the apprehensions are in place, but let's not try it so far. I personally would see to it that having been like all of them have everywhere and all terrains and all kinds of this thing, there is definitely a need. Nobody is denying the fact that there is a need to have young soldiers. And if there is a need to have young soldiers, no better way than having this. Now, what it is the success of this Agnipath scheme is dependent on the rehabilitation of the 75% who are not going to be. That's the way. Because the people who are come in with joy, jazba, junoon, commitment, dedication, Ram Namak Nishan, regimental spirit, dying for the nation. all that will come with them once they in their minds are very clear. It's a very clear mind. Well, some amongst us will serve the army, and some amongst us will be serving police, CAPF, or whatever. As long as that apprehension of that boy, otherwise that boy will not be committed, because from the very start, within about no time, within about 6 months to 8 months, the boy himself knows he doesn't seem to be fitting and gelling with the kind of environment that he has gone in. Reason. Now, reason I want to tell. The earlier recruitment procedure was that a boy went to the physical test first, he went to the medical test, and only those who cleared the physical and medical gave the written exam, and those were taken in. Now the procedure is reversed. It's an all India, all class. First is an exam. That means for what we hear, the last 2 years I'm running, for last 4 years these boys are running. All they are running because there are recruitment agencies which are working, academies running and ensuring that, look, we've given you the first chance to get in. Physical, we have done for you. Well, medical is your responsibility. Written will help you. Now it is not like that. Now the boys have to go all India, all class for a written exam. It's like any exam. So once you go into the written exam, only those who qualify the written exam will go through physical. Only those who clear the physical will go for medical. So there's a, for those people, you probably may not understand, but those who are into it will understand what is it like, you know. If I know for sure I'm going to clear my written exam, only then I will start running. But most of these boys who come from rural areas, they think that army means it's physical. It's only brawn, no brain. So only brawn, run, and that's the way you will qualify for it. It is not like that anymore. You could be running very well, you could be doing very well. But if you failed in the written in the very instance, you won't be called for. So when you hear a lot of these boys saying, हमने recruitment में pass कर लिया है, हमको बुलावा, none of them, not one man has given the written test exam. He is only qualified the physical and is qualified probably with the medical, but that doesn't qualify his entry. So there's a subtle change there, and therefore a system now it is introduced that we have to look at it. How successful can we make it? 2 points only. One, of course, the rehabilitation of 75%. There in the thing. And second, now it is up to us, the regimental center and the commanding officers, whose task will be heavy, to ensure that the kind of lots that they're getting in are fully trained for war.
Yeah. So, sir, you've raised several issues. First, you said that this in effect becomes the pilot project. So there, I would say, would you accept that perhaps part of the problem is then for it to be announced in such a sweeping way? It should have been positioned as a pilot, as a test project, where even if it is taking in 50,000 boys in this year or girls, that at least it's positioned as a work in progress, whereas it's deemed as never again, it's changed the entire nature of it. It's all India, all class. It's changing the whole battalion psyche, the culture. It's it's changed the tenure. So if it had been, I agree with you that yes, it's giving a chance to see it at this scale, but then at least it should be positioned like that, And also the rollout is so fast that in 1 month now the exam will be held. So people are not getting any chance to adjust their thought process, etc. So one, there is that concern. Second, sir, you brought up this issue about the rehabilitation, and I'm going to take that to Vice Marshal Isser, because, that is one of the big, so there's a kind of feel, those who are critiquing the scheme are saying it's like a promissory note, we will do this, the whole psyche of the army will change, they're all going to become really tech savvy. It's all like a promissory note, but there's no evidence on ground that rehabilitation at this scale is possible. We know today that, in fact, unemployment is at its heights. Even for a simple railway job, for 20,000 jobs, you have like 2-3 million youth that end up, there riots usually. So this assumption that 75% of the youth that are going out of the army will get rehabilitated seems like a bit of a false promise. Do you think, are you concerned about that aspect of it at least?
See, there is, first of all, I think this whole thing about that 75% being rehabilitated is the wrong concept. What is this rehabilitation we are talking about? Fundamentally, this is a base, and I am entirely agree with General Kulkarni on everything except for the fact that this is definitely not a pilot project. This is a basic revolution in how we run the armed forces. And there are many other schemes now, including officers, how permanent officers are going to be, given thing to continue and those who are terminated, a whole lot of slew of reforms that are going to come in. But this is the base, and it will remain so because you've realized cognitive abilities, like the general said, that written test or on the computer and these basics are far more important. And once you do that, you will get the right people. This 75% is not to be rehabilitated, of course, because of all this violence and protests, whichever way they are being manipulated. This has made them do that 10% in MOD, 10% and all that. That's all fine. But the fundamental premise is you get into the army, you do an honorable service, you get a pile of money, you get trained into some kind of wherever you join. And when you leave, you are far better at the age of, say, 25 or lesser. You are good enough with that lump sum to carry on further, get into, compete for other competitions, etc., or start your own thing or join a concern. So that must be, it can't be that 75% will get rehabilitated and people will join, not to join the army, to actually get rehabilitated. So this premise is wrong. And number two, this actually, let's be very clear. Not only the army, even others needed a lot of right sizing. I will not name it downsizing, right sizing. Our teeth to tail ratio even today is one of the worst in the world. I mean, we are worse than Pakistan. Lots of studies are going around now. So this gives the Fauj very good, they're saying, because I used to be the senior officer administration, I remember, there were a lot of these laggards and guys whom we want to check out, we could not. It took years and actually some kind of unethical machinations to, fix a guy. Now you have a system where you deep select and only let the best progress. So it's as simple as that.
So there's a couple of problems. I mean, I'll open it to everyone else to intervene, but I think there's a couple of problems for me hearing what you're saying, is that you literally just wrote off what is being very publicly stated, to address the concern of young people, that, yeah, this rehabilitation part is not so important, whereas the government is kind of really saying that this is for the transformation of the country, the youth will be so skilled, it's going to improve all the other services, etc. And rehabilitation is a big part of what the government is promising. Now, if our assumption is that that's just a cynical statement to calm the protests down, and that's not a very important component of the scheme, that again shows how unreliable all of these measures are, and sorry.
No, if I have given this impression, then it's wrong. What I am saying is you cannot have that 75% will be employed into, CAPF. CAPF is not going to take, they will maximum take.
Actually, now the Ministry of Defense has said they'll be absorbed.
Yes, 10% civilians. So that's what I'm saying.
And I just want to state this. Minister Hardeep Puri has said it'll be absorbed into his ministries, the PSUs, the ordnance factories, there are 41 ordnance factories, and many state governments. And so it's becoming like a political absorption of, employment, or at least there's a statement on that. But even there, so let's first assume that there's a capacity to do this, which, as we know, at a time when there's 46% unemployment, in 40 years, we've never had unemployment like this. It does seem a bit of a pipe dream. But my point actually is that you first brought up the pension, that there's too much of a cost on the pension. Almost 50-60% of the defense budget is being spent on salaries and pensions. But if you're going to reabsorb this workforce back into the government, into PSUs, into ministries, there's going to be gratuity and pension even there. So there's anyway going to be a strain on the budget. So it really does seem like a dog eating its own tail, at that level.
That is why the whole concept was, even if they have considered certain things now, how much can you absorb? The 25% goes into the armed forces who are deep selected. Another 15-20% will get absorbed at the outset. But the others, they are not useless. They are now trained. They get a lump sum to start a life. Otherwise, right now, till the age of 27, right up to 30 years, these guys are only hoping for a government job and actually being a burden. Whereas the army and other services will focus these guys, and they will come out as trained people whom anyway will get absorbed or do their own stuff. But to say that 100% employment you are right, then you are, back to square one. You are, especially if you are absorbing them in the government.
Right. So, General Bhatia, I want to bring you into this. Actually, there's so many issues. I want to kind of structure it. Let's just first focus on the psyche of the soldier, and then we'll come to the impact of those who are going to be out of the system after 4 years. But first, the psyche. Vice Marshal Isser said that it's actually a good thing because you'll get a deep selection. Just the 25% best will be taken at the end. Do you think, you've been DGMO, do you think that this is actually going to have a good impact on the psychology or an adverse impact? Will it create unhealthy competition? Another writer said there's going to be a triple whammy of anxiety for soldiers and for recruits. First, will we get in? Second, will we get selected in that 25%? And third, will we get a job after that? So what's your view on that? Let's just stick with the psyche of the soldier.
The key issue, the first aim is combat effectiveness, defense preparedness, operational readiness, because we have to defend the nation. We have our own security challenges. So that should be the aim, and not the second thing, aspirations of our people, the recruits who come in, their aspirations. And there is a congruence between the two. So I find that congruence missing. And what you rightly said, their aspirations. Firstly, the recruitment base now will get the last of the lot. Secondly, they'll come in and there'll be little bit of training. We want to maximize those 4 years. There's an old saying, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. That's not happening. 6 months of training is very little, actually, 6 months of training. Third thing is, you are now giving, sweetness to that man, raising aspirations that I'll absorb you 25% into the army, 10% into the CAPF, 10% DPSUs. We are confusing our very simple soldiers. Soldiers are very simple, actually. And soldiers is a way of life. It is not that I'm coming here to punch tickets and get into a CAPA job or get into a DPSU or get into some ministry somewhere. No, it's a way of life for me. I go back, I get izzat. The izzat part is very important. When I go to the village, there is a lot of izzat involved in soldiering. We come from rural backgrounds, basically. We should not forget what happens to the village. And when this man goes back, rejected in the 75%, because 3 and 4 get rejected, people tell him, you have failed income, you rejected income. He's rejected, is frustrated, and he's waiting for his next job. Which may come, which may not come. And 11.5 lakh rupees is producing mercenaries. Is that the only way? What to do 11.5 lakh rupees? He's looking for a job at 24, 25 when he comes to the army. He's looking for a job. That's the time he wants to settle down, gets married. So there are other things involved. And I have the worst case scenarios, there'll be the militarisation of the society. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope and pray that I'm totally wrong in what I say. But I have my apprehensions and raise the apprehensions. What General Hooda said is the right thing to do. Please take a pilot project. And when General Kulkarni talked about pilot project across the board, no, pilot projects don't happen that way. You select a sample size, you select some units of all arms and services, Air Force, Navy included. You put these people out there, you see how it wraps out, you see the strengths and weaknesses, you improve on the weaknesses, consolidate on the strengths, and take a review after 4 years. Where's the hurry? And we understand, budgets and all, but T2T ratio brought out. I was part of the critical committee, so was General Sanjay Kulkarni. There were 600,000 civilian employees in 27 organizations paid by the Ministry of Defense. Are they optimal? No, please. We gave certain recommendations. 100,000 have been reduced ever since. 500,000 still continue. 35% of the pension budget, even today, since the NPS started only in 2004, is to the civilian employees. To say that the budget is ballooning, it's not ballooning. Please check your figures again. Percentage-wise, if you take it, what has gone to the revenue, percentage-wise, the capital is increased. Revenue is paid allowances, fine, but that is a soldier. You have to pay the soldier. Soldier is a platform. He's a weapon platform. In the case of the army, he's a weapon platform. He's not, he has to go and function. We have challenges along our borders, both the LAC and the LC. We have CICT operations in the valley, in Northeast. You need soldiers for that. You need numbers for that. You need experience for that. So where does the experience come in? Raw soldiers don't. So there are many issues. Please start a pilot project. Let it run for 4 to 5 years, 6 years. The army is not running. We function like this. Maximize the learnings from there, and then do what you have to do. But do not tinker with the, like you rightly pointed out, I must take a second more. Do not tinker with the DNA of the armed the DNA of the soldiers. Soldiers are strong.
Right. General Hooda, I'm just going to come to you about this point of the militarization of society. But General Kulkarni, before that, I just wanted you to respond to what General Bhatia said, that, here are four of you, no matter what new professions you've taken up or not, not just in the village, but in the minds of the nation at large, and certainly the self-identity, you are first and last an army man, no matter what you'll do afterwards. Everyone says General Saab, or it'll be he's an army man, that this is your identity, this is who you are. But today the criticism is that this has turned it into a kind of is turning the army into a skilling agency for future jobs. The whole position is कि आप बाहर जाओगे, आपको अच्छा jobs मिलेगा, आप शायद security agency में काम करोगे, आप ये करोगे. The whole focus is not in the discourse as well as actually practically what will happen. This core idea, more than technological strength or not, it's the pride of being an army man, of serving the nation. That seems to be really hit by this scheme and the way it has been articulated. Would you accept that?
See, Shoma, what happens is the combat preparedness must not be affected. And what we are talking about, the 15 years pension service came very, very late in life when General Raina was the chief of the army staff. Until 1965-71, it was only 7 years of color service. The soldier served and he left without pension. He had to have 8 years of reserve service, and only those who were called for stayed. And not many people could put in 15 years, and we had to send police to get people back into the army if there was an emergency, because he did his 7 years color service and left. Now, let's have. So right now, the regimentation also came only after First World War. When the Britishers wanted Rajputs, Muslims, Punjabis, and what have you, with a view to create a martial class. So this kind of a concept of a martial class now, especially in an all India all class, and the things like that, when we have a recruitable male population, rightly so, as I said, I've been saying so. Say, for instance, in the recruitable male population, we have Kumaunis who come, say, approximately 4,000 every year. Let's presume they come 4,000 every year. Now, all India all class and a written exam first, you may get 3,000 or you may get 7,000. You don't know, because how many will qualify? So that is something which now, but you will get Kumaunis, and the number is not known. So the regimentation doesn't get affected so badly, because what happens? Those 2,000 who are clear will go to the Kumau regiment. The regiment still remains. Yes, now the shortfall in the Kumau regiment will be made from all India all class. But the Kumau regiment today also, when they are not all Kumaunis. They are Ahis. They are 25% Ahis. Now 50% Ahis and 50% Kumaunis. So a lot of things have moved in the all India all class. And today, in the context, much technically they say caste, creed, color, and the kind of regionalism must be done away with. Moment we say, yes, regimentation gives pride. There is no denying the fact that man gives this, but anybody will give. Anybody. I'm not a Kumauni. I'm from some other place. I was in the Kumar regiment, and the moment I joined the Kumar regiment, it was there from day one. So those ethos, that Naam Namak Nishan, that die-hard spirit for the battalion, the regiment, the nation, is there. To doubt anybody in this nation that he has joined the armed forces just for whiling away his time, I think it might be going too far. I trust my people. I trust the youth. Whoever it may be an Assami in the Kumar regiment. It could be a Bengali in the Kumar regiment. It could be a Sikh or a Punjabi in the Kumar regiment who are making the shortfall of the regiment. So if not complete 800, maybe another 100 might come from somewhere else. To me, my personal feeling is it really doesn't affect. The regimentation stays where it is. As regards the people are concerned, I think let's take the case. I'm a short service officer. I joined the army for 5 years. I knew I would be in the army for 5 years. I didn't know that I would get a permanent commission. I got a permanent commission. There were just about 25% who got permanent commission. 75% left. So the ones who left because those are officers. These are men. So the men, obviously, as I again would say, even though Rajesh is from my same school, we both are, but rehabilitation is important, because unless that boy who joins the army or a situation, he should be feeling or looking at it from day one that when he's whining away his time, lucky to have got through the written, lucky to have got through the physical test and the medical, and now he's here to get those 15 lakhs and start a new life elsewhere. I'm not interested, and he would, do all kinds of things, but his commitment will be lacking. But once So 25%, there is a competition. There is no denying the fact that of those 40 people, everybody will be competing to ensure that the 25% remain. And again, in this 25%, this 40 alone are stand alone. So you cannot pass over the vacancy of this batch to another batch. That is what it is today.
So,
Tomorrow it may be like that.
may I just intervene there? And I'm going to just draw General Huda into this, because you shifted it from what I asked you, which is, the maryada of being an army man, to the regimentation and this all India approach, which actually is another issue on which there's a lot of controversy. But I mean, that competitiveness can be a healthy competition if it is about being selected to an elite corps or etc. So maybe there could have been a more creative approach where people still get absorbed for 3-4 more years into whether disaster management or other ancillary services of the army. But right now there is a sense of like a rolling stone approach to this, because of the tenure being so short. But you have a differing view on that, so I'm going to leave that. I just want to bring General Huda into something which has been underlying all these conversations, which is that we are going to have this large number of young people now getting combat trained, who are going to be militarized, who are going to have that high sense of discipline, hopefully. But then they're going to come into civil society. And if they're not absorbed, do you see a really worrying possibility of militarization of civil society? They could be hired wrongly. I was reading in America, because they are private militia companies, as well as in Russia, that this really could create, in other countries, there's been a lot of minority oppression by frustrated young youth who've come out of the, military training. So do you think that this could be a big worry? Because like we are accepting, there's not likely to be a great absorption at the level that is being promised.
So Shoma, there are two viewpoints. One, as you expressed, that these are people who are going to go out and their arms trained. So if they don't find employment, what are they going to do? The other view, which has been floated by the government, is that, look, these are highly disciplined people who have a sense of, nationalism and patriotism. And so they will actually be positive members of the society. I think, Shoma, to me, the key is going to be how they are rehabilitated. And I know we've heard different views on this. I think it's important, and I think it's important for two reasons. One is, and I say this often, there is a bond between the nation and the soldier. And that bond says that the soldier will do whatever he can to protect the country, including laying down his life if required. And the nation is supposed to support him. I mean, they call it the military covenant, and this is what actually mutual obligation which keeps soldiers going. So I think that responsibility has to be there. Second, if they are not rehabilitated properly, the point General Bhatia was making, are we going to see the military fading away as an attractive career option? And people saying, look, we don't think it's attractive enough. We're just serving for 4 years. We come out, we don't get anything. There is no support. And therefore, slowly you will find, instead of what we are hoping that we'll get, better, technically qualified people, good motivated soldiers with Josh and Jazba, you just might find justice. So I think rehabilitation is important for both the things, as you talked about, militarization, and also to get good quality people. I just want to make one or two other small points. This example is often given of, we had color service, 7 years color service, 65, 71. Why did we change? Did we make a mistake, or did we change because we thought it's a better model? If you look around the world today, and I know technically you could say that these 4 years for Agniveers are not conscripts, but armies are moving away from conscript service to an all-volunteer force. And the reason for that is because it brings in greater professionalism. People who are there on short-term, people are giving an example of Ukraine. So technically, conscripts are not supposed to be sent to the battle zone. What will happen to soldiers 1-2 years of service who are young, who've just come in, as Agniveers? Are we going to send them to Rashtriya Rifle battalions? I am sure not. So there are going to be some of those kind of issues. And so what's a good mix of people who are rotating quickly versus regular forces? To me, a 50-50 mix is also too much of churn in the system where you're getting people going out. And finally, on the issue of right sizing, I don't know how we are going to right size. Right sizing means you look at your organizational structures, see which are the units you need to reorganize, where you can do, improve your, as people are saying, teeth to tail ratio, reduce some logistic units, bring in greater technology. That's the way to right size. Are we saying we are doing right sizing by just saying, okay, we'll give you lesser recruits than the number of people who are retiring every year? That is not really right sizing. I mean, yes, you're cutting down the size of the military, but this is not really the way to right size a military. And I'm in agreement that we need to right size. The army particularly is too large. But I'm not sure we are going about the right sizing in the correct way. That you haven't had recruitment for 2 years. That numbers of over 100,000 is just forgotten. Every year we are retiring about 60,000 in the army, 55 to 60,000. You're getting only 40,000 back. This is honestly not the correct way to right size. Although somebody would say yes, the army was itself resistant to change, didn't want to right size. And therefore, here it is, we are forcing you to do it. But I wish it had been done in a more sort of organized way. Sure.
Right. So, Vice Marshal Isser, just respond to what General Hooda is saying, that, do you think, like, one point he made was that if there was a change after that experience in the short-term recruitment, was it that was a mistake, or was it that one already saw that there were problems with that short-termism, and that's why one moved to more permanent commissions? So that's one point he raised. And the second is about this downsizing. In different bits and pieces, it's come up that the civilian bureaucracy and the civilian end of the army is too large. And, I was looking at the numbers. I think almost 1,30,000 crore is for civilian salaries, and 1,60,000 crore is for the army, the military end of the army. So there's another criticism coming up that if you're going to do this, you're going to actually need an even larger bureaucracy to manage the larger amount of recruitment, retention, rehabilitation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So will you just respond to General Hooda's point that do you think this was the right way to downsize or right size?
General Hooda is too wise for me to comment on his. Essentially, what he's saying is right. But look, you can't have especially if you're looking for a transformative base change, then other reforms, you have to do a little bit of disruption. And this is part of it. As regards recruitment, training, that whole model has to change. I mean, most of the things can be outsourced. Let me just give you a quick example. People used to think flying can't be outsourced. Today, Navy, even Army outsources some of its flying. The British Armed Forces, the entire helicopter fleet is completely trained till operational stage, till they actually go into battle in Afghanistan by civilians. It's an outsourced thing. So there are answers to many of the problems, including recruitment. Recruitment, the fundamental stage of answering questions on a computer, etc., can be outsourced. Whole world is outsourcing that. So why not? Even the IS exam is kind of outsourced. So why not us? So one is that recruiting thing. The other thing is many of these models, nobody says any policy is not non-adaptive. Along the edges, these are adaptive. I'll just give you a small example. We had a chief in the Air Force who was very probably ahead of his, just like General Sundarji, he was too ahead of his time. And he introduced a concept called the JIT, just-in-time training. So the airman came in, he was just indoctrinated, kind of done, and within 3-6 months, he was put into the squadron to learn the job. His training was on the job, and he would get, slowly, and on paper, it was beautiful. And actually, this is something akin to that. That's what's going to happen. But that model failed, not because conceptually it was poor. Nobody allowed it to succeed. Everybody ensured this JIT guy who came was not trusted on the aircraft and was put on guard duty. And so he never evolved. Nobody wanted a JIT trained guy. So it was a vicious circle. So these are things that quite obviously the services, after all three chiefs and their entire staff have thought through this. There is no way they are yes men, or all three are my coastmates, by the way, all three chiefs. And they are solid professionals, all three of them. So, and the staff. So there is no way they have not thought out this. There is no way they think this is a perfect thing and nothing is going to change. Some adaptation will happen. What they had hoped for along the way, these disruptions have made them, take some quick, maybe because of political necessity. But otherwise, it is a worthwhile thing. I agree, nobody wants change, and change is a very difficult thing. And all of us are old timers, so we wouldn't like things to change. But to my mind, it will work provided we are ready to adapt. And there are ways and means, modern ways and means, as people refer to, simulators. So many things are there. Training is completely changed. You can train a guy on an aircraft to service what you used to take him 1.5 years. Now the entire model, electronically, simulators, everything is available. 3 months, he's actually working on the aircraft. So there you are. 1.5 years, 3 months.
Just on a lighter note, so I'm sure all of you just watched Top Gun, where, the debate between experience and youth is heavily weighted in the side of experience over there, because it's a psyche again. But not that all of you have agreed the army needed to get younger. But there are two questions I want to put to you, because these are things that General Bhatia and General Hooda have also brought up about being anxious. The militarization of society. So you said that you don't really foresee 75% of this being absorbed in some new productive jobs, or at least government jobs. Now, whether in Iraq, in Africa, in Rwanda, in all these places, in Iraq also, we've seen the demobilization of an army, which is then not productively absorbed into society, has created a lot of conflict and a civil war sort of status. Are you worried about that aspect?
No, I think the analogy is completely wrong. Iraq, an entire army was demobilized. That's the biggest mistake, that including from the general level down to, and that is the biggest mistake the Americans made. They should have co-opted some part of it, and that's a separate chapter in itself. Even otherwise, I have served in Africa with the UN for some time, and in
Rwanda, in fact, yeah.
Chapter 7, and I've gone there. And, trained Indian Army is different. Indian Army is a very, very professional force. One who comes out of training from there will be aberrations. There will always, even today, there are aberrations. So many cases we've handled where this guy's gone home and there's a land dispute. He's managed a gun from somewhere and shot off the guy. Does that mean the army is failing? I mean, there are
not by the aberration. May I just ask you to consider this? Okay. That, when you're saying, sorry, sir, just for a moment, that if you are trained, and you are, the other possibility is that we start having a lot of private militia companies, and Russia and elsewhere, they actually just become on hire for anybody who can pay well. So the beauty of the army training then gets, this is a potential danger. I'm just saying that, do you think that...
These proxy armies are being used not within the country. They are being used outside. In fact, we should be doing it. That is the way forward. We'll have to finally one day do it. But that's a separate aside. As far as militarization of society, there are people who are leaving after short service commission. There are tons of guys in NCC doing firing and being trained, not like an army guy, but fairly, he knows how to handle a gun and he has the discipline. They are not going berserk. So, and listen, all I said is the word rehabilitation is a wrong word. 75% conceptually will be fully absorbed by society, whether they start their own thing, they get into some competitive thing and train themselves for better jobs, or get into the army, or get into these other things that are coming up. As far as the concept goes, they will all get usefully absorbed into society. So now you're saying, no, they will not.
Now we'll have to wait for what
so let's wait.
Saying, that we'll have to see the impact of the large-scale pilots.
That will come after 10 years. Maybe we'll have to change back again. Who knows? But as of now, this is required.
You're saying this shake-up was needed. General Bhatia, I want to bring you in on this point that General Kulkarni raised about the regiments and the nature of the regiments. So far, the army has had this tradition of different regions, different, sometimes even religion, etc., being in particular regiments. And there's some amount of amorphousness, but by and large, that's the identity. Now, with this all India merit-based approach, The potential is that it all merges. Do you think that's positive? But another criticism I was reading is that, it could be that there'll be a huge skew, when there's no longer state-based quotas, etc. This idea of the army representing the full diversity of the country may get diluted, and we may have a situation like in Pakistan, where there's a huge predominance of Punjabis in the army. Do you think that, do you think that that's a problem?
Strength of the armed forces, especially the army, is the regimental system. And we are making too many changes, creating too much turbulence, creating too much turmoil in all places. We want to right size, we want to bring in all class, we want to change the recruitment pattern, we want to change the terms and conditions of service, all this without even trying it out. No, don't hit out our strengths, consolidate your strengths and our regimental system of strengths. When you interact with the senior military leadership of foreign armies, all they want to understand is how does the regimental system function. It's a functional system. I come from a regiment which is all class. It's not. It is as good as any regiment. But what is the need to change everything all of one go? You want to change the recruitment system, try it out. You want to change the regiment system, try it out. Pilot project. You want to change the training system, try it out, please. So everything. Now, not that I want to get involved in my colleagues this thing, but he says outsource. Yes, definitely outsource. But something which is outsourced, our pension which is outsourced to the banks, has now come to Sparsh. I think we are confused. We really don't know what we want. Different yardsticks.
General Bhatia, do you think, to those who are feeling positive and optimistic about this scheme, do you think you might come across just as a status quo, is that you don't have the appetite for change? You're just wanting to stick with old ways. So let me then pose another question to you, which would be, if it had been in your hands, what reforms would you have asked for? What is the priority you would have taken?
Yeah, you optimize there's a certain organization like General Huda said, I agree with him totally. We need to right size. We need to get in force substitutors and force multipliers. We need to do a lot of things differently. We are tradition bound, but everything can't be tradition bound. Outsourcing, like Air Marshal Isser said, outsourcing is a very good example. Outsource the non-essentials, don't outsource the essentials. So there are a number of issues that have been done, but do not all of a sudden, do not get turmoil by interfering with the very strengths you have, which is good soldiers, good traditions, good regimentation, good organizations. So don't interfere with everything together. Take it one by one if you want to do something. And when you want to outsource today, there's enough willing to civil to outsource. I'm totally for outsourcing. We can outsource so many things actually, and cut down on that. Cut down on the civilian employees in the administrative defense. Why do we need such tremendous organizations? Everything is an organization. Are they contributing? And they all get paid very well because they retire at 60 at the end of the at the end of the higher pay scale, and they get more pension, things like that. So we are hitting at the strengths of the armed forces, which is not right. But yes, I think I'll end up by saying I hope and I pray I'm totally wrong. For the sake of the nation, for the sake of national security, for the sake of the armed forces, for the sake of the aspirants, the recruits, I hope I'm wrong and everything succeeds. I honestly say that. I may be wrong, but there's nothing wrong in pointing out our apprehensions, how things can be done better, and that is where I stand by our armed forces violation.
Right, sir. So, General Kulkarni, we're just going to ask for last comments because there's quite a few more things to discuss, but we're out of time. One, I saw you nodding when General Bhatia and I was articulating this regiment problem, that maybe there'll be a preponderance of one group in the army. Do you see that as a potential problem?
Shoma, what happens is General Bhatia's apprehensions, General Huda's apprehensions are perfect. Rajesh has his own observations. Perfect. Everybody, these are apprehensions which, like what General Bhatia says, he hopes that nothing of it comes true. All of us hope that this nation's territorial integrity and sovereignty is always held. We are 100% committed to the armed forces to say that yes, they're being trained to win. But all said and done, this kind of thing, even in, I would say, in the mechanized infantry also, we have a certain lot which is totally regimental and affiliated to certain regions and everything. And yet another 50% of the entire lot and much more than that, totally all India, all class. And we've been seeing it for the last 20 years. 20 years, it's not a small project, it's a 20 years. And the results are that all those who are all India all class have proved better. And there are entire regiments who have done all India all class. They have proved better. It isn't like, and even to say that they have proved better and the regiments haven't proved, no, the regiments have proved exceedingly well. So there are pros and cons. But then I think there's a certain limit after some time. It's time. Now, like just a small example, what happened of militarization of the society that you're talking about. After the Second World War, we had 20 lakh army. We went back from 1,90,000 army, we went to 20 lakh. Demobilization took place. We came back to about 4 lakh. And what happened then? All the Punj people who went back there, almost 80,000 people demobilized, sent back. They were not part of the army, but they knew what happened. We know today. Entire Punj, entire majority. You know what happened in Gilgit-Baltistan? What all these people who were militarily, who had participated in the Second World War, because had no job, and they belong to a particular religion, region, and whatever it is, and the attraction that they had, they fought, and their weapons were there. They managed to get their weapons from the local forces, and there, the militarization of the society took place. And what happened in what is called Azad Kashmir was primarily the result of this. These demobilized soldiers in large numbers who could not be given a job led to what happened in Punjab and Rajouri. So you've got to depend on the soldier, and whatever General Huda and whatever General Bhatia and everybody are saying, after all, at the end of it, it is that what really matters are boots on ground who are dedicated, devoted, willing to die for this. And what is most important is the relationship between the led and the leader. If that is maintained, there is no question. And that comes not within a short time. It takes a long time for the leader to understand who is leading and the one who's being led to understand who the leader is. So that relationship is also very, very important. And that comes with the passage of time. Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to, like everything you'll say, I have another question I'd really like to ask, but I'm going to actually invert the cone right now. One, you said that potential for militarization or problems arising out of this can happen. And, you said about this relationship between the leader and the led. I think that's another very important thing a lot of people have been raising, that how much will you invest in people when you know it's in such a short time and then you have to start all over again. So this relationship of the leader and led is again something people have been critiquing about the scheme. But now I'm going to invert the cone. I'm going to ask you and Vice Marshal Isser for what you think is potentially problematic about this. And I'm going to ask General Bhatia and General Huda for what they think is perhaps good about this, because we've been doing the opposite. So Vice Marshal Isser, let me start with you. What do you think is a problem, in the scheme as it stands today?
One is a problem that you brought out very, very clearly. Somehow in the recruitment, we have to factor this diverse representation. Otherwise, we've had these queues, which were, MOD addressed them. So this has to be addressed, and I'm sure there must be some game plan on this. It cannot be just that, you leave it in there. Then if it is only tech savvy, then only people from Andhra or Tamil Nadu will come in. So, undoubtedly that will be there. I think the biggest challenge is going to be in this whole culture shift that's going to happen. Let's assume the whole thing goes through and it is fait accompli, is revamping of training. And at a really fast pace, because if we are going to recruit the 40,000 immediately, even within the Air Force also, not only the Army, the complete revamp of training and sticking to that plan, like I gave the example of the wrong example of the just-in-time training, it shouldn't go that way. You have to nurture it, care for it, and you'll get the results. So to my mind, training is a very big thing. And of course, this representative diversity that needs to be maintained.
Right. General Huda, in the ocean of concerns you may have, do you think anything in this has the potential for good? What would you pick?
No, Shoma, it has good. So as I said, you are getting a younger profile and, you're operating on these very challenging terrain and areas along your border. And so if you have younger people, they would certainly be more sort of efficient in operation. I think if you're picking only 25% of the Agniveers, you're going to get much better junior leadership at the level of what we call the NCOs and the junior commissioned officers, because you're getting the best lot, and those are the ones who are going to be permanent and provide the the on-ground leadership. That's an advantage. The budget is a plus because frankly, everybody said you can't manage with that budget. So maybe not immediately. I think over a period of maybe 7, 8, 10 years, you are going to see an impact on both salaries as well as pensions, and that money hopefully will get pushed into for modernization, of the military. I also think, Shoma, we have to accept that this scheme is going to be rolled out as it has been announced. So I don't think any of us are even suggesting that we should not roll out the scheme or hold it back or do something different. It's got to be rolled out. And I'm sure the military leadership, particularly at the level of commanding officers and company commanders and below, they're going to try and make this a success because they are the ones who are going to face the maximum challenge. All these people are going to come to their units and they are facing the biggest challenge. My only appeal, if I may call it that, is please treat this as something which is a sort of like a test bed, and be open to review and change. My concern is the way it is being sort of put out there, that it's already, such a fabulous, fantastic, transformative scheme that, there can be nothing better than that. I just hope that, doesn't make us a little rigid about accepting some change where required. That would be my sort of request and appeal.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if I may just use the moderator's prerogative to say something here, which is that just the fact that these are done in such a spectacular decision-making makes it worrying, because also for Parliament, for other parties not to have a say, not to have a discussion, the army is really that one apolitical, wing of our democracy, which belongs to everybody. So for everyone not to have a chance to speak on this, and then for it to be rolled out as a consensus, we've had already rollbacks on the farm laws and, demonetization, etc. So personally, I mean, I do have a sense of worry when something is done in spectacular fashion and in the shortest possible time. But that's me putting in my 2 bits there. General Bhatia, what about you? What do you think you feel good about in this scheme? What potentially could go well?
I go exactly what General Hooda said. Budget gets balanced. We'll have more to spend in the capital budget. Things are changing. We are going towards Atmanirbhar, which is required. So I see positives also. It's not that I don't see positives. I see positives. Job opportunity for others. Some of them will come back to the system. May not be militarized. I've spoken of militarized society definitely, but that is one end. That is a cause of concern. If we can correct it, because we can get people out there who are more nationalistic and more committed, more dedicated, many organizations. So there can be a lot. There is a lot of good, but I hope it succeeds. I hope it pans out, and I hope it does not affect the combat effectiveness of the armed forces. But the ownership for this should be taken by the government of India. The accountability for this scheme rolling out should be taken by the government of India, not left to the armed forces. If it is not driven from the top, it is not interministerial. It's not a whole of government approach, and we like to call it whole of government approach, but I haven't really seen much of it. So that is something which is a key issue. Manage the transition well. Because if you don't manage the transition well, we have problems. We have to be present relevant as armed force. We go to future ready. We got troubles along our borders, and it can blow up if we are weak. So I would wish it the very best. I wish it to succeed.
Just on this point you made about the government of India taking responsibility for it, it just brought back to me something that Vice Marshal Isser said, that perhaps it wasn't part of the plan to have so many promises made on reabsorption in government ministries and PSUs. And potentially this has actually just happened in response to the protests, and the Minister Hardeep Puri today said, no, it was already all part of the plan. But I think these are the worries, because even when the lockdown was announced, if you have a whole plan and you articulate it in a way which calms people down, then there would not be so much anxiety, but it's probably not been thought through that much, which is why you don't unveil it in that way. So again, speaking as an ordinary citizen, that would be my worry. But General Kulkarni, let me come to you.
Can I take a second, please? My worry is it will erode the credibility. If it is not rolled out properly, it will erode the credibility of the armed forces. We have a lot of respect among the population.
and actually other countries. I'm sure China and Pakistan are watching this with hawk eyes in the midst of tension on the borders, that you're doing such a massive reform. People are going to be watching it a lot. General Kulkarni, what would you count as your area of concern in the scheme?
Shoma, I'll just take a minute because I have to switch on to another channel.
Sure, sure.
Not with that. First and foremost, it's very important that all of us, now that what General Huda said and what again General Bhatia is reiterating it, this it's there. The scheme is there. It's rolled out. Now we have to put our heads and hearts together to ensure it's a great success and it's a work in progress. There should be all suggestions, modifications of the scheme must be accepted with grace and not as seen as a stumbling block to what Rajesh said. Well, at the very outset, they didn't want the GIT to succeed. So obviously it won't succeed. If they don't want to succeed, they didn't want it, it won't. But now let's get our hearts together. Now, of course, the challenges are there. The regimental centers, which are going to be training, the basic training there has to be excellent, has to be at par and beautiful, so that the boys who come back to the battalion at the battalion level, a little bit of an advanced training given to them, not the specialist training, advanced training given to them, so that they become fit and are seen as someone that they all look forward to. And the boys who are selected also must also react in the fashion that yes, they wanted to join the army because they thought that there's a bright future for them, even if they are not absorbed. At the same time, they join the army with 100%, even though Rajesh may not agree with me, the fear of non-rehabilitation must not be there. But they must be convinced that even if they're not absorbed, even if they're not part of the 25%, for whatever the reason it is, they will still be seen as good gladiators who will be absorbed in the society, rehabilitated to a large extent by the government, to a large extent by the industry, some amongst them wanting to start their own, small ventures, whatever it be. But yes, they are the ones who are going to be someone that the nation will look up to, and the scheme as Agnipath is being called the standalone. They are not ex-servicemen. The ex-servicemen are only those who put in more than 5 years of service and the ones who become sepoys. So these 25% who come back become sepoys. Otherwise, no Agnipath is an ex-serviceman. He is an Agnipath, and that must be understood very well. And once they go back, so with that kind of a,
So I'm just going to cut in because you have to leave, but I do need to challenge you on this one point that, if people are going in with that concept that, okay, this will be my road to a better future and a better career, then when they are deployed to, Kargil or to Galwan, do you think that they're really going to put their life on the line when you see this as an internship to a better career after that?
Shoma, let's not underestimate them. Supposing if it is, they were not Agnipath, let's take they're not Agnipath. That's the point from day one of the recruitment. And if Galwan or anything like Ladakh or anything was to happen, and they were in their first year of service, you mean to say they will not take up the challenges? All of them who have, probably if you go up a long list, all of these youngsters have died and laid down their life. Even so many of the senior lot have also died. But to say that these boys who are 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years will not lay down their life or would hide and be cowards, I don't see them. Once they are trained, then once they are brought into the regiment, within the battalion, the ethos, the training, everything, I'm sure. Let's not underestimate our youth. Only thing, because of the system and the kind of the toxic environment is in the country, and at the same time the feeling that their job is something that they're looking forward to. 20 years back, probably the whole of the army, even the Air Force had problems because all of them would want to go out and join Indigo, Air India, and whole of the airlines. But then they had to put a ban on it to now they will continue to serve the Air Force and they will continue serving the army. Army also, a lot of these technical officers went out and had a better opportunity. Yes, but today, probably everybody, because of the kind of unemployment, everybody looks forward to a stable future and at the same time look after the family, look after the old parents. The boys are coming from rural areas, so they also have aspirations. They have also gone up to study 10th and 12th standards, and they are also children of, most of them are children of farmers or absolutely poor people. And therefore, I think they also need to be, that sort of a guarantee must be there. Yes, the society will look after, the country will look after, and that is not just assurances, rehabilitation, proper rehabilitation. At least if I have called this 4 years as a pilot project, at least for the next 10 years, everybody must be employed somewhere or the other, so that people are take it as a something is pride. Yes, I went there for 4 years, even though I was not absorbed in the army. Well, I'm doing well today, and I have no regret whatsoever, because the way I stand, the way I talk, the way I walk, and the way I approach the life, my attitude has changed. I have acquired skills. I am definitely an asset to the society, to my family, and I've been an asset to the nation. That's all. Thank you, Shoma.
Thank you, sir. That sounds like a very optimistic dream, but as we all said, we hope that this will work out well, because without a doubt, the army is too important for the country, and we hope it'll go well. I'm going to let you go, sir. I'm just going to end with one last quick question to Vice Marshal Isser. Sir, in your piece, which you just wrote, as well as something that the Minister Rajnath Singh just said, that, you wrote in your piece that you think that protests should really be sort of curbed, and that forget about criminal cases. Anyone who protests violently should not get government subsidies, should not be recruited, should get no government jobs. And now it's also provision that no one who's ever protested can get into the army. So do you think that this is hitting at the absolute heart of a democracy? Of course, nobody is supporting arsonists, but, protest and the spectacle of protest, because if you protest quietly in Ramlila or somewhere where no one is, perturbed by your protest, nobody is going to give you attention. The point of protesting is you demand attention. Do you think, sir, that this impulse that protest is anti-national is really striking at the heart of our democracy?
You mean to say burning trains and all public services, and in that train the passengers were still inside and they were throwing petrol bombs? You think that is democracy?
No, sir, I'm not talking about the arson. I'm saying it's different. But when it says as a blanket, I mean students all I said, may protest.
Yeah, okay. What I said in my piece was basically that people who these acts must be dealt with laws that must dissuade people from doing it. By all means, protest. The farmer protest, though I personally agree with farm laws, unfortunately they're not there, but the farmer protest was largely peaceful. They just stayed there and it worked. So, it is contrary to what you said.
Right.
Number
so
two, it is just the violence part, and especially public goods. I shouldn't be saying this publicly, but going and hitting at the opposition the public may not, be concerned. But you burn a train. I mean, in Hyderabad, the passengers, women and children were still inside when these guys threw petrol bombs. These are not army aspirants. This was organized. There is no, and it's coming out now. The proof is coming out. So my point is, this whole thing has been hijacked. The other thing, just 1 minute I'll take. You've been saying, and as if this thing has come very, very suddenly. 10 years back, I remember in various stages, we've been working on this whole issue of some reforms like this. And I'd gone to army headquarters also, even they were working. They had been told to downsize. Unfortunately, nobody wanted to downsize. So it's come to it was discussed threadbare. It was in the open domain, especially after the cabinet note. It has been discussed left, right, and center. The chiefs themselves were there along with, though I do agree, I think if they had just left it to the services to announce this and roll it out, we'd have been a better thing rather than making a spectacle out of it. But I don't know how better communication strategy could have been. If you have Malafites who are wanting to wait for any issue and, straight away strike out. So that's what I said in my piece, that, this is not a perfect one. It's going to adapt. Everyone knows that, and even the generals have been saying the same thing. So wait for it, let it adapt. Yes, they should have thought of those people who are suddenly out of the reckoning, 22 years to, those guys, What are they going to do? That should have been catered to as to, either control them or whatever. They shouldn't have been, put out like that, because the whole nexus, there's an ecosystem, rent seeking, which is a naukri dilane wala. We all know it. In fact, the army is going to get better people, contrary to what, with due respect to General Bhatia, because the recruitment is going to be hopefully a little better, rather than through nefarious. And I've seen enough of those to, speak out like this. So I'm not against democracy, protest, and the army is the best institution finally, which will protect this democracy. but violence, arson, and this kind of stuff, not acceptable.
Right. Thank you so much, all of you. We could keep, I would love to know from your experiences, ground experiences, what impacts you think all of this will have. But I think the one thing we are agreed on is that we hope this won't hurt the psyche or the effectiveness or the morale of the army. Everything else is manageable. Even budgets are manageable, but not the psyche of an army. And one hopes that that's not going to be impacted adversely by this. So thank you very, very much for joining me, all of you. It's a real pleasure to have you on my show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shoma.
Very much. Yeah. Thank you.